Social Equity and Environmental Justice, From Achieving Social Equity, From Problems to Solutions by Mary Guy and Sean McCardles. Author is Jennifer A. Kagan, PhD, and it's Chapter 11 of our text. Social Equity and Environmental Justice. The Environmental Protection Agency identifies environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, on the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental law, regulations, and policies. It entails procedural justice, democracy and participation, and also must include distributive justice. It seeks a sustainable development by balancing of the 3 E's: environment, the economy, and equity. History of the environmental justice movement. Dateline, Warren County, North Carolina, 1978. The state selects Afron, North Carolina, and Warren County as a site to construct a hazardous waste landfill. Science did not support the selection as a safe place. In fact, the state had to secure waivers from the EPA because the soil was not sufficiently compacted and the water table was too high. What separated this site from the 93 alternatives? Afron's population contained the highest percentage of African Americans, and Warren County was one of the state's poorest counties. Birth of a movement. The community organized in opposition to that site and connected with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the United Church of Christ Commission for Racial Justice. 2 lawsuits were filed that they failed to stop the facility, leading local residents to resort to direct action. Protesters blocked the entrance of trucks carrying contaminated soil, and news of this resistance spread across the state and the nation. Social activist Ben Chavis, one of the protest organizers, issued a study demonstrating a clear pattern of selecting sites for hazardous waste production and disposal at or near poor and minority communities. The international attention led to the first National People of Color Environmental Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C., also in 1991, where participants adopted the 17 principles of environmental justice. The principles of environmental justice. 1. Environmental justice affirms the sacredness of Mother Earth, ecological unity, and the interdependence of all species, and the right to be free from ecological destruction. 2. Environmental justice demands that public policy be based on mutual respect and justice for all peoples, free from any form of discrimination or bias. 3. Environmental justice mandates the right to ethical, balanced, and responsible uses of land and renewable resources in the interest of a sustainable planet for humans and other living things. 4. Environmental justice calls for universal protection from nuclear testing, extraction, production, and disposal of toxic and hazardous waste and poisons, and nuclear testing that threatens the fundamental right to clean air, land, water, and food. 5. Environmental justice affirms the fundamental right to political, economic, cultural, and environmental self-determination of all peoples. 6. Environmental justice demands the cessation of the production of all toxins, hazardous waste, and radioactive materials, and that all past and current producers be held strictly accountable to the people for detoxification and the containment at the point of production. 7. Environmental justice demands the right to participate as equal partners at every level of decision making, including assessment, planning, implementation, enforcement, and evaluation. 8. Environmental justice affirms the right of all workers to a safe and healthy work environment without being forced to choose between an unsafe livelihood and unemployment. It also affirms the right of those who work at home to be free from environmental hazards. Environmental justice protects the right of victims of environmental injustice to receive full compensation for all damages as well as quality health care. 10. Environmental justice considers governmental acts of environmental injustice a violation of international law, the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, and the United Nations Convention on Genocide. 11. Environmental justice must recognize a special legal and natural relationship of Native peoples to the U.S. government through treaties, agreements, compacts, and covenants affirming sovereignty and self-determination. 12, environmental justice affirms the need for urban and rural ecological policies to clean up and rebuild our cities and rural areas in balance with nature, honoring the cultural integrity of all our communities and providing fair access to all to the full range of resources. 13, environmental justice calls for strict enforcement of principles of informed consent and a halt to testing of experimental reproductive and medical procedures and vaccinations on people of color. 14, environmental justice opposes the destructive operations of multinational corporations. 15, environmental justice opposes military occupation, repression, and exploitation of lands, people, and cultures, and other life forms. 16, environmental justice calls for the education of present and future generations, which emphasizes social and environmental issues based on our experience and an appreciation of our diverse cultural perspectives. 17, environmental justice requires that we as individuals make personal and consumer choices to consume as little of Mother Earth's resources and to produce as little waste as possible, and make the conscious decision to challenge and reprioritize our lifestyles to ensure the health of the natural world for present and future generations. Environmental justice, an amalgamation of interest. Conjoined at the intersection of environmental and social interests, the EJ movement draws direct correlation between environmentalism and humanism. Civil rights leaders continue to play an integral role in this movement. Environmentalist perspective focuses the safety and sustainability of the places occupied by humans, more so than issues like sea rise and global temperatures. The anti-toxin movement of the late 1970s plays a critical role in this movement in its effort to empower communities when required to challenge the capitalist growth economy from the front lines. The modern environmental justice movement is challenging the economic and political power structure in urban environments where water quality, hazardous waste, power generation, and other industrial pollution and containment continue to threaten the health and well-being of peoples based on race, national origin, and socioeconomic class. Native Americans, previously forced to courageously struggle against environmental injustices in isolation, are uniting with other victims of economic and environmental tyranny to resist the dirty developments of mining, energy infrastructure, and toxic storage. Empowerment equals a seat at the table. Previous movements for equity have focused on the distribution of a meager portion of the industrialization's benefits as a means to offset the burdens beset upon poor and minority communities. Environmental justice is a fight for a voice in decision-making as part and parcel to the traditional concepts of justice. The distributional justice entails the equitable distribution of both the benefits and burdens of environmental policy and is the dominant approach to justice issues. Procedural justice requires democratic decision-making and shared information, public participation, community self-determination, and just procedures with unbiased decision-making. Environmental justice in public administration. As public administrators in government or nonprofit service, we should recognize the National Academy of Public Administration statements and positions on social equity, stewardship of natural resources, and climate change, and creating modern water systems. Social equity, a key pillar of public administration alongside the economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, addresses fairness, justice, and equity within a variety of public contexts. Stewardship of natural resources addresses climate change. As the nation's industry and population grow, it is critical that the public, nonprofit, and private sectors effectively steward natural resources and protect the environment for ourselves and future generations. Create modern water systems for safe and sustainable use. As the nation's industry and population it is critical that the public, nonprofit, and private sectors effectively steward natural resources to protect the environment for ourselves and for future generations.